right, let's get some more perspective on last night's gubernatorial debate and bring in our political analyst, Brian Sobel. Brian, good to have you on here today. Obviously, a crowded stage here. Let's start with the Democrats. 6 Democrats on the stage last night, and really all of them making an effort to try to kind of carve out a lane as either a progressive or a moderate in the party. How well do you think the candidates did at distinguishing themselves?
Well, Alex, just take the subject of homelessness. You listened to those 6 Democrats talk last night, and I don't want to say there wasn't a new idea there, but there wasn't a new idea there. Most of the things they talked about have been either tried or in some way implemented without great result across the state of California. So what I think analysts like me were listening for were new ideas, something different that we haven't heard before. Frankly, they mostly played it very safe last night because the old thing in debates is that you don't want to have something come out of a debate that ends up being quotable in the negative. You only want positive things to come out of a debate, or in this case, really a forum.
Yeah, so do you think it was a missed opportunity by some of those candidates not to really be more forceful on some of the issues?
I always say that because you've got one shot sometimes at people seeing who you are. Otherwise, they're making a decision by mail, by television commercials, like in the case of Tom Steyer, who we've talked about before, who has more money than a lot of other people in the race, and just blasting the airwaves with his own messaging. But actually, I watched very closely last night to see how he would do, and I didn't think he excelled. For a guy that has kind of come off as the angry man in his commercials, you didn't see that last night. In fact, he agreed with some of the positions of his opponents on the stage last night.
You know, from the Republican perspective here, there was only one Republican on the stage last night, Steve Hilton here, and there seemed to be a real clear strategy from him to try to build conservative support behind his campaign right out of the gate, going after the only other Republican in the race, Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco. What did you see in terms of the strategy for Steve Hilton, and how effective do you think he can be at kind of clearing out the other Republican in this contest?
I don't think he's going to have that problem as much, Alex, as he is going to have with just a lot of Democrats. And so, of course, he was the counter to them last night, hoping that Republicans, his base, some independents, and some Democrats who are not very much in favor of some of the people running would consider him for governor. That's his calculus in this thing, and that's who he has to go after. The sheriff, I don't know whether the Riverside sheriff, I don't know whether he will present much of a case at all. Steve Hilton is known from his work on Fox among conservatives and others. He's a broadcaster and social media person. But, you know, it's a Democrat state. It's a blue state, so it's an uphill challenge for any Republican.
Yeah, and Brian, while you mentioned we might not have heard any new ideas, as you put it, on some of the big issues, the candidates did offer some ideas when it comes to, let's say, housing. Tony Thurmond set an ambitious goal. He's going to build X number of homes in a certain amount of time. Javier Becerra said, hey, I want to freeze utility rates. This was on the affordability issue. And Steve Hilton said, hey, I want to cap vehicle registration fees. All of those things to try to help make the state more affordable. As a viewer, though, as a voter, when you're watching these things be talked about and discussed, is there a little bit of, yeah, right, sure, you're going to get that done?
Absolutely, because if this was a simple problem to solve, it would have been solved already. And that's what happens in higher elected office. The problems that end up in the governor's office, in the office of the president, or one of these high offices, are problems that haven't been solved at a different level. And homelessness and affordability in general in California is a vexing set of problems. And so all of these candidates, I credit them with, frankly, restating a problem. But you want to listen to whether a candidate has something different. And if it sounds pretty much the same, it's probably because it's pretty much the same. And in some cases, like in the case of a couple of the candidates, well, okay, you know, we're going to go the tax billionaires some more, fine, but you have to look at the hard numbers there. That isn't the only solution, getting more money from billionaires. It's some systemic changes that have to happen, and I didn't hear a whole lot on that subject last night.
Well, speaking of sort of making systemic changes here, there were a couple of candidates that sort of framed themselves as more pragmatic leaders, and I'm talking about San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan, as well as State Controller Betty Yee. I mean, she had a line that was memorable for a lot of people, saying, "I'm the adult in the room here. I've done this before." Matt Mahan talking about sort of, you know, the blood sport of politics and wanting to kind of rise above that. How do you think messaging like that will appeal to voters in this race?
It will appeal, and I actually thought Matt Mahan did a really good job last night. You know, he's fairly new to the field, but I thought he comported himself well, pretty statesperson-like. Betty Yee has a lot of uphill feet to climb. She's not very well known, kind of soft-spoken, was at the end of the line of men, frankly, on the stage. But I think if you had to pick, you know, one or two or three winners, I think Mahan finished in the upper echelon of the candidates last night.
Yeah, Betty Yee, though, touting herself, saying, I've done this before. The state can't afford a rookie. I'm the one that really has the experience. Maybe not the fanfare, but I've got the experience.
Well, and from the standpoint of being a controller, yes. Yeah. She understands the fiscal situation in California.
Inner workings of all of it.
Absolutely, but can she take that forward and convince people she's the person? We will see.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
That'll be the question here in the coming months. All right, our political analyst, Brian Sobel, great to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Good to see you. Have a great evening.